I'm going to ask you, just try to be here with me.
Brilliant. Gotcha. Hello, everybody, and welcome. This is actually going to be the first episode of season 2 of New York 100. And because this is a new season, I just want to reintroduce everybody to the series. So I started this about 3 or 4 years ago, and I just love entrepreneurship. I love being yourself. I love people who pursue their passion and want to spread that across the world. So I show you guys people who are, just moving forward and pushing people towards their dreams. Hopefully this video will inspire you to pursue your dreams as well. And in that pursuit, part of my job is to scour the internet, scour Instagram, and see who's actually living their truth and helping other people. And I came across Jeffrey. Jeffrey, you are an acting coach here, or acting trainer here in New York City. So would you mind just going into, actually let me introduce Jeffrey first. Let me give him his due diligence. Coached and trained hundreds of actors, of course, New York
and Europe, Los Angeles. I've been doing this for probably 15 plus years now, and actually started the whole thing where we are right now here at Circle in the Square back in 1986.
Wow.
So I'm dating myself.
Wow,
yeah, a lot of great things. Talking about help and pursuing were born out of this exact room, among others here, and some really, looking back at all of these things, some pretty amazing experiences that I had, that I reflect on and that I use in my teaching. Not only the things here, but I learned some things in other places too. But this is where it started.
All right,
Circle in the Square.
Where are we at? This is
Circle in the Square.
Okay.
The theater school down in the basement, where I don't know how many feet underground.
Yeah,
and it's like a dungeon, but it's like a dungeon of real creativity and exploration and discovery. Did I say that twice?
No, you didn't say it. Okay.
But
so is this a acting school, or
this is like a theater conservatory.
Okay.
I don't teach here all the time. I've gone on and I created my own thing called Conservatory NYC.
So your origin. So how did you actually get into first acting itself? How did that come about? Why did you want to choose this field of art?
So I think that goes back to my grandfather, Daniel Nathaniel Glickman, from the Bronx. And I had a really unique relationship with my grandfather. I think one that was a bit closer than my father had with him. But nonetheless, my grandfather, he was a contractor in Queens, New York, but he was also an entertainer. And he would perform in musicals and comedy skits, and he was a real natural, but he didn't ever aspire to be, an actor or a famous actor or to make a living as an actor. But the things that he would do, were kind of at the expense of other people regarding his
humor?
He's not. He passed away actually in 1989, 90, in my arms actually. It was a pretty amazing thing that happened. I went out to visit him to get a pair of pants for a play that was going on here.
Wow.
And he ended up having a heart attack, and I did mouth-to-mouth and CPR. And moments before that happened, he was looking at me, and he was like, "Jeffrey, you want to be an actor? You know how much luck you need to be an actor?" And I was like, yeah. I don't know how many times he said this to me. And then what happened is he started complaining of nausea, and then he fell down, and I didn't respond to him. And I didn't respond to him because I looked at him and I said, yeah, get up. Because this is what he always did. He would walk into glass doors acting like he really didn't, it was an accident, or he'd walk into a door frame or a pole, or, he was always acting. He was always goofing around. And so that the day he passed away, I thought he was kidding. And then I realized he wasn't kidding. And then I had to take action and try to see if I could save him, which I couldn't.
So what came out of that moment? I would say a moment like that, you really cannot be the same person, or there has to be something that triggers after that. After someone literally, passes away in your arms, what type of person, what happened? What type of transformation did you start to see from within that period?
On a kind of a surface level, but not really. The next day, I had to come back here to perform this play. And, the show must go on, they say. And I think what happened for me in that moment were two things. One, I wrote the last scene of a screenplay entitled Daniel's Last Game, because that was his last game with me, even though it was a real thing. And what came out of all of this was a need to want to tell a story about a man and his grandson, and trying to find the truth of that story, my story, that I shared with him, which was a really interesting relationship. And out of that came an ability for me to recognize that really what he wanted me to do was go after something, but he didn't know how to say it to me in a very straightforward way. And so what I took from that moment was an aspect of that, was to really go after this thing. Because at the end of the day, I think it's really something that maybe he wanted to do, but that he didn't choose to do.
So when you kind of took on or inherited that emotion of, all right, get after it, what were some of the things that you started to do, like tangibly as an actor, to improve your skill set? What were the things that you were doing to, as you got more serious about your craft?
Well, I think, that was kind of at the end of attending NYU, which is where I went to college, and NYU basically put their students out to the different conservatories in the city, which is why I chose to go to the school. And I ended up here at Circle in the Square. And I think, you really have to get real about pursuing this kind of career. And that's not to say that you don't have to get real about pursuing other things, but the stakes are really high, and the competition is so great in this kind of career that getting real about what it is you really, really need to do is extremely important. And I always knew that I wanted to be an actor. I mean, going back to answer your question about, what was going on when I was growing up, and I was kind of mimicking what my grandfather was doing. I mean, I would act like me and my friends would act like we would get in fights in the hallways, and they'd slam my head against a locker, and then a whole crowd would come to watch it. And then like on 3, we had a signal that the whole thing would end, and people were like, wait a minute, what the heck just happened? And we got up and we were like, this is not really a fight. This is. And then I obviously, was always in musicals and plays and that kind of thing. But I think it's important to understand what it is you really want to do with this stuff.
So I want to talk about getting real, right? So previously, right before our conversation, asked me why I do this series, right? So I kind of consider myself as a businessman and an artist. and in between that is a designer, right?
Okay.
So, this is my art, I love doing this.
I can
right?
see that.
And acting is an art itself.
Yeah.
But how for students just like you, when they want to get real, they want to see themselves in screens, they want to see themselves in plays. How do they transition their art into something that's actually maybe sustainable, get jobs? Because obviously that's a real issue. You just say that there's a lot of competition.
Yeah.
So how does someone get real and try to get themselves into different jobs across wherever they are?
Yeah. I think the best way to answer that question is to, we were kind of always taught that you don't go after the job, even though you do go after the job. I mean, we go to auditions, we want to get a job as an actor, we want to, then do good work when we get that job, and then hopefully use that as a springboard to get more work. But I think the thing that's most important about getting real is to follow exactly what it is you need to do, and it relates to the human condition, as to why we want to portray a certain character, or how we want to portray a certain character, and really exploring this transformation. I think what we need to do as actors is to put ourselves in a space and kind of really explore us and the human condition of the characters that have been written. And it's not, a lot of times it's not about the ordinary, it's really about the extraordinary. And I think in really finding the core about that and exploring the human condition, you're finding something more out about yourself in personal development. And I think building that confidence and that understanding about how to approach the craft of acting. And there's all different kinds of ways to skin the cat, and we can talk about that if you want. But I think it's following your dream and really knowing or learning about what it is you really want to do and say, what you really want to say. And then, if you begin to really understand something about that, and you take that into a casting, in an audition, that, I believe, along with other things, but that core thing is what I think the casting directors and the directors will see.
So I have a question. So it's kind of a two-part question, but I wanted to know, firstly, how much of the actual human experience do you think is acting? Us acting like somebody?
Well, I think why I got into acting, it was all about the human experience. And not, again, this idea or this, I think when we're first starting, the only way we can, with this work, the only way we really can is kind of to indicate a human experience. But I think really what our goal is as actors is to really live truthfully in these imaginary given circumstances that is up on the stage. To live truthfully in them is to really live with what is really going on with yourself in that, and to find out what's going to happen rather than to know, or we might think we know what's going to happen. Just like in this interview, we might think we know what's going to happen, but I have to let that kind of go so that the tape recorder can cool out, and I can kind of really try to be here with you and talk about something. And these cameras can make it very difficult at times to do that. We get very nervous with these things because we feel like we're on the spot. And that's what happens when an audience is in a theater that we want to go and perform for. But I think it's really about finding out what can really happen in a moment related to the human experience and what that real thing can potentially be.
Brilliant. I want to get to nerves in a second because you had a video about that online. But I want to go back to this question of how much do you think people are acting? The reason I say that is because I feel that most people, even myself, I think that we're all acting to be something in a given moment. For example, when I have to set up the equipment, I have to act like a camera technician, right? Yeah. When I do an interview, I have to act like an interviewer. And after this interview, I have a meeting, hopefully to sell a client. Right. I have to act like a salesperson. And then when I have to go home, I have to act like a videographer. And I have to act like a whole bunch of, maybe I feel like I have to act like a whole bunch of people. I don't know if that's right. I don't know if you feel that's the same. Do you feel as if most people act all throughout their lives?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do have to take on different roles to get different things done in our lives. And, but at the core of it, we are who we are. And our experiences, for better or for worse, make up who we are to be those people in these roles.
So my question is, how do you come off authentic in acting? Because I get it, like, even when I'm speaking with a client or I'm just doing an interview or I'm speaking with my mom, I don't feel as if I'm switching something on. Maybe in the beginning, I would feel as if I'm acting, right? But over time, it becomes a part of my personality. So how can one, aside from the acting, the craft itself, how can one get more in tune with themselves so when they have to take on maybe an arduous task or a grand task, they have to become something? How can someone prepare themselves to become something? Similar to your process as an actor about to go on stage, but a person maybe as simple as about to approach a woman on the street or something like that. How can someone prepare to take on a character?
I think that can start with understanding how we can listen. And what I mean by that is listen to ourselves. And that, to drill that down even further, is to take a moment to be able to listen inwardly to what we really want to do. I think we get into this thought pattern of thinking about what we think other people want us to do, or, you know, in terms of pursuing a career, or in a moment on stage, well, what do they want me to do, rather than what is it that I am hearing inwardly related to how I want to express myself. And I think following that truth, the truth of what it is you really want to express, I think can take you places.
And how can you tune into that? Is it practicing meditation, or is it just being alone, being in solitude? How can you practice tuning into yourself?
Well, yeah, I think it's, in this work, in the acting, with the craft of acting, there are specific exercises that we can do to help us slow down. Because I think especially in this society that we're living in this day and age, with the social media and how many likes am I getting and how many people are looking at my Instagram account, and everything is so fast now. We all know this. And I think what's really important is to be able to understand and learn how to slow down and listen to what's happening in a moment, so that you can then make a decision about what it is you're going to do. And I think in the speeding up of things, we lose a part of ourselves. And when we slow down, we get to really hear and what is resonating within us. And I think meditation is a great way to do that. And I think a lot of this work revolves around those kinds of things that might happen in a class of meditation, or something interesting happened to me when I was living in Los Angeles. I was actually asked to go to work in a prison system with, there were 3 prisoners in this in this prison, and these guys were on death row to go to San Quentin, and this was in Los Angeles, and they were on their way to San Quentin. What was to become of them, I'm not exactly sure, but that's a death row prison in San Quentin. And I walked into the room, and there were 3 cages, cells. And the one that I was asked to kind of spend time with, and I didn't know what I was going to do. They had heard about some of the work that I was doing, by which I didn't make this work up. It's stuff that I learned here and along my path as being an actor training. But there was a few specific exercises that enables us to really begin to listen to our body.
Would you mind taking us through at least one of those exercises?
I can, but I'd like to share the story.
Oh, brilliant. Okay,
with
thank
you
you.
first. You know, a lot of times we're so locked, both physically and emotionally, because we need to get through life. And I think in this work, we kind of need to unlearn certain things to free up the tension, because the tension in this work is the killer. And so when we free that tension up, both physically and emotionally, things start to come up. And, you know, my class or these classes are not about getting angry or having to get angry or sad or be really happy, but they happen because it's part of the human condition. And so when I was working with this individual in the prison, this was a Mexican man who had a gun tattooed on his forehead, among other tattoos all over his body. And I proceeded to do an exercise with him that I can do here with you today. Because I didn't really know what to do with him, but I could only imagine that there must have been so much going on with him that he probably suppressed over the years. And no one gave me any information about him. They just said, can you try to get through with him maybe in a way that might help him talk? And he never talked, but we did the exercise, and I asked him if he could do the exercise with me. Okay. And when he did the exercise with me, him and I began to commune. And he started to cry, which really made me get emotional, as I am right now. And in the doing so of that, I think he was able to speak about lots of things. Because my bet is he probably had killed at least one person in his life. And I think through this exercise, a kind of personal development in a moment happened for him that I don't think any talking really could have helped him. It was him really coming to grips with his body and the tensions that he was holding on to that helped release some emotions. So for a moment, he didn't have to hang on to his life. He could just be there with himself and express something that he probably never gave himself permission to do. And that's part of this work too. That human condition about giving yourself permission to get real, to do something, doesn't necessarily happen in the civilian world. The civilian world doesn't really ask that of us. But when you come into an acting class, we're constantly being asked that question, so to get real and to do what it is you want to do.
Just so you know, guys, on the camera, I wrote down, just be.
Yeah.
Just be.
Acting is not acting. Acting is actually being in the moment. To then see what you're going to get from someone else. That's sent over, then something comes back. I have to recognize what I'm experiencing when that thing comes back. I recognize what it is, and then I send something back. It's what we do in life, but we put it under the microscope to understand the process of sending something and then receiving. Just like the man on death row that I was working with, he got something from me. He gave himself permission to let that land. He recognized what he experienced, and he came back to me with something.
Now, this is a great tool. A lot of you guys who watch and follow me, I do a lot of interviews with entrepreneurs and businessmen, and just act. It's a range of different professions. And what happens is a lot of people you should get in contact with Jeffrey here. I'm going to put a plug in for him. Your Instagram again?
Conservatory NYC.
Conservatory NYC, because I think you can do a lot more than just helping people with acting.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you really do essentially at the core is that you help people unlock themselves.
Yeah.
That's what you do at your core. And
Yeah.
I love it because I know a lot of people you might be watching and say, okay, how does this benefit to me? I'm doing X, Y, and Z. I'm this. I'm a furniture designer. I'm this and that. But a lot of times we're faced with tasks where we're so inundated on outcome or what's going to happen that we don't.
The result.
The result, exactly. We're not actually in the moment. So I do want to know. I'm very curious, and maybe you guys might be curious as well. What is that exercise?
Okay.
Yay!
So, but here's the story. You're gonna have to do it.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. All right. And so this is not an exercise that I made up.
Okay.
It's actually an exercise that was taught to me by a teacher that I had, actually named Tony Greco, who taught here when I was here back in 1986. And then I continued to study with back when I moved to Los Angeles eventually as an actor after I left New York. He learned it from Lee Strasberg, a very
I
well-known
want to make sure I get his name right. Tony
Greco.
Yeah. And who else?
And he learned it from Lee Strasberg,
Okay.
who was one of the founding members of the Actors Studio back in the day. And so the exercise is called the relaxation exercise, but it's not really an exercise about finding a way to relax as we might think about maybe when we're working with meditation or yoga, that kind of relaxation. What it really is about is an opportunity for us to enter into a relationship with ourselves, to explore where the tension exists in our physical instrument, but also because this is an instrument an actor uses, our body expression of this form that we have, and then our emotional life and our voice. And a lot of times when these things are locked, there's a rigidity that can come through. And so what we need to do, what this exercise was really designed to do, is to unlock the tension so that I can then be ready to do what I want to really do. And that revolves around, and what that creates is a relaxed instrument. Not a relaxed instrument in the sense of like, okay, I'm ready to go to sleep or something like this, but being present. And so it really can create an opportunity to slow down and to be able to inwardly listen and to listen to someone else. Because acting is reacting. And so even in this exercise, you're going to react to me doing this exercise, and I'm going to react to you doing this exercise. And so I'll demonstrate the exercise.
I want to make sure the cameras are ready first.
Okay.
They run on 20-minute intervals, so
Oh, great.
I don't know how long it's going to take.
Sure.
Oh, brilliant. Just in time, yeah.
Oh, cool.
And then are you good on time? I mean...
Yeah.
And then are you good on time? I mean...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
I'll check the time for you. It is. I do not have my phone. All right, whatever. So, recording.
What time is it?
All right, I'll do that for you. Let's check.
My phone, actually, I don't know where I put it. It might be in my...
All right, so I'll
Okay.
get somewhere there. And we can't call it. Oops. Actually, wow, so much stuff. Oh, here we go. It's 11:45.
Right.
Recording. I'm good. Recording. Whoa. All right, that's good. And then recording, and then say count to 10. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Brilliant.
6, 7, 8, 9.
All right, recording. Green. 2. Red. green, red. Do you feel good so far? Or we feel?
Yeah, but we're going.
Yeah.
It's something interesting I want to ask you, Amadeus.
Brilliant.
We needed to check the time,
Yep.
right? So what happened?
Everything fell. I'm moving things around. I'm falling. I'm just looking for my.
But what happened with you when you asked me, how am I on time, right?
Yes.
And then I asked you what?
What time is it?
You asked me, I asked you, what time is it? And then what happened?
I said, let me get my phone.
Right. And what happened when I asked you that, though?
I just switched and got my phone.
No, you didn't. You actually started looking for your phone.
Okay, yeah.
Right? There was a whole thing that went over here.
Yeah.
You became very frazzled. Do you remember?
Yeah, I can remember that.
Yeah?
It just
you
happened?
became, what?
It just happened, yeah.
You became very frazzled because why? You had an objective to do what?
Get my phone.
To try to find your phone.
Yeah.
And in that, you became kind of nervous.
I guess.
And frazzled. Well, I watched it because you were dealing, it's okay, but this is what we deal with here. You know, you were looking over in there. I then said mine, it might be in my case, my phone, and then you were like, no, and some box fell down, and this box over here kind of came out, and you were throwing all different kinds of stuff around, and then you finally found it. Now, this is an exercise that we actually do in an acting class.
Really? Wow.
It's related to an objective, and when we come in to try to find something, but see, the actor knows exactly where it's going to be, but they have to make it look like they don't. But what happens in this process also is that tension creeps in to the work based on the objective that you need to fulfill. And when the tension creeps into the actor, then all the work becomes very tense and I'm trying to find the word. There's a rigidness that creeps in, and almost a non-believability can come in. Now, if I were to ask you to do what you did again in that way,
it probably won't be the same.
Well, but you could, as an actor, create that. But that's something that you're creating. But when I put you on the spot, your head was like cut off, and it was like you didn't know what you knew what to do to try to find the phone, but you didn't know
where it was.
Yeah, and that is what can get in the way of us being really in a moment. It's interesting how these things can happen.
You know how did you see how I got back into this moment? I'll teach you how. Red, green, 3 dots. Red, green, 3 dots. So as I say and verbally look at the camera equipment, okay, 3 dots, audio on, say something.
That's your process.
That's my process of getting right back.
To anchor and to get present.
And when I didn't do that before, when I just go from there, shake, and I'll sit right back down, that's when the camera shut off. That's when the audio isn't good. So that's why I learned back to sit in the seat and be present. I'll say everything out loud, repeat it. Now I'm with you.
And you know what? What's most important about all of this work is it doesn't matter how you get there. What matters is that you do get there, so that you can then be ready to do the work. So I'm going to demonstrate this exercise.
Book or not?
You don't need the book.
Okay, brilliant.
So I'm going to demonstrate this exercise as a way, right? So if we were going to work on a scene, or this improvisation of finding something, which is what you were doing, and we're going to get up in front of a class of our peers and do this, or we're going to get up in front of an audience, or we're going to be on a film set, we get nervous. And nerves is just energy that needs to know where to go. But nerves can kind of take advantage of us and make us do and say things we really don't want to do and say, based on the text that we've been given and the choices that we're making to play the human condition of this character in the world. And so we need to do something. And so what I learned, and which I pass on to my students, is this relaxation exercise. And I do this exercise at an audition when I am pursuing, an acting audition or a role to get. I I can do this in a car, I can do this in the bathroom, I can do it or find a specific space to do it, but I know that I need to do something for me so that I can go in and be present for that audition or, you know, when I'm performing. Because if I don't do this for me, the tension will, and then the nerves and that energy will kind of not be channeled, and I will end up doing all kinds of things that I really don't want to do, based on my having rehearsed something. So it's a series of sounds and movements, and the movements are designed to help us recognize where the physical tension in the muscles exists, right? And it's kind of a very strange looking, sounding exercise, but I kind of have to get over that and be okay with kind of being a fool, right? Because I know that I'm really just doing this for who?
You.
Me. And what anyone thinks about what it looks like or this, that, and the other thing really doesn't have to matter. Because it's no different than me getting up on the stage. I once spoke to an actor named Al Pacino, and he said a few things to me, but one of the things that he said to me is, if I'm not nervous, something's wrong. And then on top of that, he said, if I don't feel like a fool, then I'm not doing it right. And there's no right. And so with this exercise, there's nothing really to get other than whatever it is that comes. And I don't know what's going to come through the release of the tension. So I'm going to demonstrate it to you. I'm here with you, and you're actually here with me. And so being here with me is kind of us getting out of our comfort zone, even physically speaking. So we really want to sit kind of like this with our feet flat on the floor, our legs a little further out. And so we're open and present.
Okay.
Right? And all you have to do is just be here with me, and you might recognize something that happens in you. What's happening now?
I'm smiling.
Right. Why are you smiling?
Because I'm happy. I'm doing what I love.
Right. And you might also, energy might be coming to you in this moment, and your laugh comes through, and your face starts to change, which is a real thing that's happening. Right? Wow. Look at that. And so you look at the camera a lot.
Yeah, I mean.
That's what, right. Okay. So I'm going to ask you, just try to be here with me.
Brilliant. Gotcha.
So that's the exercise. And usually through the exercise, we're asking ourselves, what am I experiencing when I come on the edge of my chair and I work with this sound and movement? And explore if there's tension in my shoulders to move that tension around so that it can channel. And that sound, that long first sound, the sound that ha, is really no different than text in a play. It's the expression of what's going on, which is what people do. They have experiences that they live with, and then they say the things that they need to say to get what they need in life. That's what plays are written about.
All right, so I'll tell you how I feel right now.
Yeah, what are you experiencing right now?
I don't know how to react.
You don't know how to react. Well, what are you experiencing?
Place of...
Stay with me when you're with us.
I'm thinking.
Well, what are you experiencing in your body instead of what's up in here? It's really about what am I experiencing in the body that can inspire me to be here in a specific way and not thinking about this gets in our way. This knows too much. And so kind of this stuff we need to throw out the window and really be here in the body and what we're experiencing, and then be able to express it, right? Because, you know, when we learn lines, the problem is we learn how to say the lines. And it's not about the lines. It's about what's in between the lines. It's about the life. And the lines come out organically from what's happening and what we need to get. Because we always need something from someone else or achieve a goal in life. So those are called objectives that we need to understand something about in this work. To start with, we just got to kind of get real about what's happening in a moment. So what's happening in a moment with you right now? Why you're here with me?
I don't know.
Yes, you do. That's a common answer.
Don't know.
But you do know, because if you can slow down enough to listen, then you will be able to understand something about what's going on inside of you right now. But we run to this. So if you were to not run to this and listen to what's going on in your instrument, what could you tell me right now, or what you're experiencing right now?
Quite honestly, I need to go to the bathroom like 20 minutes before this interview, but I didn't go to the bathroom. That's honestly, okay.
Okay.
I didn't go to the loo, you know. So,
Okay. But what? Okay. Do you have to go to the loo?
That can wait.
Okay. So what are you experiencing right now? Stay with me.
Right now.
So do me a favor. Come on the edge of the chair and do the sound and the movement that.
Oh, wow.
And be with me when.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
So I'll show you. So stay with me.
Okay.
And put your feet flat on the floor and just do the sound and the movement. Let the hands just fall down and be with me, because we're working together on this, right?
Yes.
So it's not about this flying. The arms are just straight, and work through the tension and just be here with me and work with that sound, one long sound, a pause, and then a loud explosive sound.
Okay. It's good. Okay, come on.
Stay with me.
It's okay if I close my eyes or look at you? Look at you.
Yeah, be with me.
Oh, what if it's not coming out long sound? What if it's just
It's got to be one long sound. Real loud explosive sound. Ha! And the reason for the loud explosive sound is to break up the internal tension so we can allow whatever we are experiencing to come through. We have to train ourselves to allow ourselves to give ourselves that permission. And let me say something. In this, there's nothing personal. You don't have to be polite, and you can't hurt me or yourself.
All right, let's go.
Good. Keep working. Good. Really let that loud explosive sound. From here. Send it out. Send that sound out. Be with me, but send it. Okay, sit back. Stay with all of this. Don't check back to something here.
Brilliant.
Slow down, slow down. Breathe, breathe. Right down in here. So let this just relax. You don't have to put on the show. A lot of times we feel like we have to put the show on instead of just being. It's great to be able to give yourself the opportunity, even though we're doing this interview, to just be rather than have to show. That's what everyone's doing out there, is showing. Well, can we slow down enough to just be? Can you let this relax? What are you experiencing right now?
I'm
Try to
happy.
tilt the head.
Okay.
Down. You're happy.
I'm happy.
All right, so
I'm proud of myself actually doing that. All right.
But it's really interesting, Amadeus, when you really allow this to relax, you look different. You look like a different person. That doesn't have to keep it together right now. And you don't, because you're working on this here with me right now, which is really interesting. And you look, I see some kind of older soul when you relax your face. You look a lot different. You look a bit older. But that's...
Cheers.
So what's happening right now?
Okay, I'll stay with you. No, I'm just getting more focused. I'm much more focused.
That's what it does too. That's that thing of the exercise bringing yourself into you a bit more so that you're more present here. You can hear me more. We're not talking at each other necessarily. We're getting more honest about what's happening.
Yeah.
That's what the exercise is designed to do. And it builds. And we as actors have to really practice this or other exercise. But we have to practice them, because if we don't, what ends up happening is we keep this stuff as if it's the very first day, every single day. And then you don't grow. So a lot of actors, it's like, I always ask actors, do you practice this exercise? And they try to BS me. Yes, they do. And I can tell that they don't. And what does it involve? Are you with me?
Yes.
Good. What does it involve? It involves us having to get into a room and do something. Because a pianist, there's a piano over there, what do? They
practice.
They sit down at that piece of wood and practice it for hours. I used to play the cello, and I was told, you got to practice for many hours to get good. Well, in this new age of acting and YouTube and, vloggers and all these things, acting's kind of been watered down.
You know what I feel like right now? I feel like I'm not acting anymore.
That's great.
I feel like I'm not acting. I just realized I do put up a persona when I put on these cameras.
You have to.
Okay.
But now you can also just be you.
Fuck 'em.
Oh, we can cuss? Great. I love your laugh. It's amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Thanks.
But you're doing this a lot.
I'm thinking.
Try not to think so much. Just for today here in our interview. Can you lower your head, your chin?
Okay.
What happens when you do that? What do you experience?
It's a weird position. I usually don't lower my chin like this.
But what happens, I know, but what happens when you do that? Do you experience something different, perhaps?
It feels like I have a different intention.
Yeah, that's a very important thing. One of the systems that I work with for actors, revolves around gestures. And we in life use gestures all the time to express what is going on. But we can flip it around and recognize, well, if I work with a certain gesture, what is it that I experience? That might give me a certain feeling or a certain way to achieve something. And so we can use that objective to then inspire us in a way to live, like I'm doing right now with my
Okay.
So.
All right. So, Jeffrey, I want to give you my honest opinion of, first how I feel.
All right. Yeah, well, yeah. Cool.
I guess let me tell you how I feel right now. Obviously, as I said, I feel like I wasn't acting. Now, since I'm giving you more response, I had to reset my cameras and whatnot. So during the experience, I did feel like I was tapping into something, but I couldn't get through it 100%.
No, and you wouldn't, based on your first time.
I wanted to. I was striving for it. However, like I said, I have to be cognizant of so many. Like when I'm talking with you, I'm listening to your response. I'm looking at your microphones. I'm
Lots
looking
of
at the
things
cameras,
going on.
the red. I'm looking at so many things.
So it's hard. So what are all those things preventing you from doing?
From really being, here with you.
That's right. And those are the obstacles we face as actors too.
But since doing that exercise, how I feel was, I did feel much more free, much more open. Didn't really give a fuck, about anything.
That's a great thing.
And I feel like if I use the exercise and I went to do something else, I'd probably tap into that, be more focused. Mm-hmm. So, but it kind of brought me into a state where when I go to the gym, when I go to the gym, I scream, I curse, I holler, and listen to music and do anything. So it kind of brought me in that same state, just like moving my body, and
Well, I think it's really important, and I think it's not just for actors, but I think it's really important that as human beings that we really take some time to connect to our bodies, a conscious awareness of them. I mean, especially in a city like this.
Yeah.
I'll sit and observe people walking because I'm fascinated by it because most people, and I'm not saying, myself or actors who train and really take this are better human beings than other human beings. That's not what I'm saying by what I'm gonna say. But we're a bit more conscious and aware of ourselves in a different way as artists that bleeds over into us in the civilian world. Because the civilian world doesn't demand of us the things that a room like this might or should. And that is to, what can I do with this hand? What can I do with this body, my voice, my emotional life to tell a story? Out there, people are just trying to get to A to B, do their job, and not really think about much. Just get through life. And characters do that too. But we have to know about the human condition to portray that. We have to put that under a microscope to portray that, and then make it very interesting and compelling. So when I sit there and watch people out in the world just getting A to B, they walk in very unique ways. They have tensions in certain areas of their body, but they're not really aware of themselves. And I would say that it would be a great experience for this whole planet to start really becoming more and more aware of themselves instead of others.
Your work is really starting to settle into me right now. I can feel my facial expression deep diving into you. Before I was like,
you were holding that together, and that's a really interesting.
But now I'm like,
that's a great thing. So this whole thing kind of relaxes instead of this is a habit that we form from wherever we come from, to kind of, in essence, cope or live how we live our lives, and the thing with that is that will then come through every single character. You have a very interesting laugh. That's your laugh. But if you were really training as an actor, your laugh might not be this character's laugh that you're working on. So how do you find the character's laugh? Just like you would find the character's voice, the walk and the talk, the behavioral tics. Those might be very different than your own.
So I wanna ask a question. So how does this actually relate to the law of attraction? Stepping into a character, stepping into someone. We say fake it till you make it to become something. How does this, what you're saying, how does this play with or relate to the law of attraction? Or if it does.
Can you define what you mean by law of attraction
for
you?
The law of attraction is you create a world where you're luring things and opportunities to people towards you. That's what I feel law of attraction is. And I feel as if when I put on, Jeffrey, I don't look like this every day, mate. Like I'm wearing sweatpants, I'm editing computer. For the last month I was like this, but I put on this, I dress differently.
Well, you were inspired. You're inspired to enter into this thing that you want to portray in this thing that you're creating. The law of attraction. I think it for me, the way I can kind of interpret it is that I think we really have to figure out say what you mean and mean what you say, or shut up. And I don't think shut up is an option. At the core of it, I think you really have to clearly define what it is you want, and then understand what steps you are going to take to get them, and let all the other noise be put to the wayside. Let that kind of drip away. But it takes some time to identify what it is you really want. And that can be a process.
Yeah, I really never had that problem myself, but I know people have that problem, and I don't know how to help them. 'Cause for me, it kind of just came.
Well,
I don't know for you.
I think it's about and some people don't. And I think what it comes down to is slowing down this thing, slowing down. Because as it relates to us in this work with acting, it's very important to continually be slowing down so that you can hear what your imagination is telling you, and then mimic the imagination, not the intellectual kind of safe thing that the brain is going to want to do because it knows best. We use our brain in this work, but it's the imagination. So if you can really slow down to listen to imagination, and I think that is a technique in itself. And I think that is what people who do great things in the world listen to, their imagination, and really ride on that and trust it. You gotta trust and take risks, really big risks.
So I want to speak on that, and then I want to get into your masterclass about what you said about building imagination. This whole thing was an idea that came from actually one of my lowest moments, just like in life. Came from my lowest moments. And I was like, what if I just interviewed people from all over the globe? And I made it my focus, made it my vision, step by step, little by little, one person after another interview, and then it became real. And when I published a trailer, and I was like, wow, it's actually real. So I think you're right. People who achieve a lot, they're like really inundated with that imagination, and they make it a reality. So I adore what you said. So I do want to get to your masterclass because you teach some amazing work at your school. So you use this. I have to kind of search for. Yeah, you use Michael Chekhov.
Yeah,
Michael Chekhov.
I studied at the Michael Chekhov studio, and Michael Chekhov came out of the Moscow Art Theater as a young actor, studying with Stanislavski, and he had a system that he created.
A psychophysical. So is that what we did? A psychophysical approach?
I think what we worked with, in essence it is, because it involves the physical and ultimately can impact or inspire the psychological. But it was the gestures that we were talking about, the physical and the psychological gesture. In other words, when we really want something, we might not necessarily outwardly do the physical gesture, but inwardly, when you really want something, can you show me what it...
I'll lean into it more.
You'll lean into it. That's a gesture, right? But we might first work with wanting to pull something, right? So as an actor, working physically, we might work with a gesture of pulling. That Chekhov recognized, that's a gesture that gives me an experience. But then what might be the psychological gesture of that is me leaning forward and trying to pull something out of you.
Really?
And you could use that like in an interrogation scene. So like inwardly, I'm thinking about pulling something. And it starts to inspire how I might say something. And then I can use the lines. The deeds of Coriolanus should not be uttered feebly. So I don't have to think about how I'm going to say the lines. I can just work with this psychological gesture of pulling something. And then, did you have any specific reaction?
I felt drawn into you.
You felt drawn in.
Yeah. So you use his approach and his techniques, in your classes.
Yes.
And I had a list on my right hand of like things that you taught. I watched a lot of your videos on Instagram. I'm gonna leave the link of your Instagram below. You have some amazing, concepts for people. We touched on some of them. You touched on mannerisms. We touched on tension. Nervousness is energy, that needing to go somewhere in between the lines. But I think one of the last things I want to talk about is approaching a stage and paying attention to why we're. No, that's not the last thing I want to talk about. It was actually in between the lines. You mentioned it. You spoke on it. But that video really drew into me because you said the actor, you shouldn't be dictated by the lines. It should just inform us.
Well, it's kind of like, what is the circumstance going on in a moment? What is the situation? What does one character as written by the playwright trying to do? Or what is that character trying to get from the world or another character? And so I think it's really important that we take the time to understand a lot about that and not a lot about, well, how can I say the line? If I understand a lot about the human condition in this specific moment based on what the playwright has given me and really explore that and understand something about where the scope and range of that objective and need is, working physically or however we are, then the lines will just ride on top of that, if you will, need. So they'll come out in a way that I never even knew they would come out. I'll actually probably, most likely, and if you're doing this work in this way, you will surprise yourself. And then that's the rehearsal process. And then, but why should that stop, even during the performances? It should always be about surprising yourself in a moment. And so the lines can just, the lines, the moment it gives birth to how the lines will ultimately be said. And so it's all about the life in between these lines we've been given. I mean, I was once directing a play, and one of the actors came up to me and told me that another actor asked him, that was in the play, how would you say these lines? And I heard that and I was like, that's kind of a shame. Because that actor couldn't really slow down enough to understand something about the moment and was just trying to find a quick fix as to how they should say something. It's not to say that that won't happen, that the way it's said won't come out in a unique way, but I think it's kind of trying to put the apples before the cart. Let's find out how things can come out rather than going after the result of how I should say something.
So
in commercial acting, when you're selling something, that's what directors will probably say. I want you to say it just like this, but not on the stage.
Okay.
Not really.
So I do want to kind of wrap up here, but I do want you to kind of speak on your masterclass, your consulting. Just let us know, what you do for the city, what you do for people, how can you be of service?
Sure. Well, how I am of service is I hold master classes
Okay, yes.
in New York, and I post when those are happening on Instagram, plus my website, Conservatory NYC.com. And I teach at different schools in New York, Circle in the Square, also at the Stella Adler School of Acting. Then I have my own workshops. I teach. I work privately on Skype. I spend some time in Europe, in Stockholm. I have a school there called Actor Studio Stockholm as well. And so I go back and forth between Europe and here. At the end of the day, I think my goal really is to help people. I want to help people recognize something about themselves through this awesome work of exploring acting and the human condition and finding ways of transformation.
So, Jeffrey, I really want to say thank you for taking your time out to do this.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This was an experience.
Great.
This was an experience.
Cool.
And I really want people to, hopefully we transfer that information over. But I really want you to get in contact with Jeffrey. It doesn't matter whatever field you're in. Because,
It doesn't.
Because what I just experienced right now is something I've probably never experienced in my life.
Well, we should work more with it at some point.
Brilliant.
I would like
So, links will be in the description below. And thanks for watching. But last question I'd like to ask all of my guests: New York in one word.
Chaos.
Chaos. Hopefully.
Organized chaos.
Control chaos. Right?
Organized
That's a
chaos.
that's a hyphen there, so it still is one word. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it. Go again, get in contact with Jeffrey. If you haven't watched more videos, there's a bunch more to watch here in this series. And thank you guys. Remember, be great. Cheers.
I know, man.
That was it. Sorry, my hand is a bit hurt. my hand is hurt. So yeah,
Right on. Cool.
can opener.
Great questions, man.
Oh
And-
man,
and-
I can go longer.
I know you can. But that was awesome what happened for you with the relaxation exercise.
Really?
Your whole face just like,
I gotta see it. I gotta see it.
yeah, because, yeah.